So guys, we're going to go over some goal setting tonight. Keep track of your questions as we go. All right. And then I will answer those questions at the end. So first thing I want you to do is, if you have a pen and paper, write down the states that begin with the letter I. I as in Indiana Jones. There's your first clue, but write down the states that begin with the letter I. Give you about a minute. The letter I, states that begin with the letter I. Anybody got them? There's 4 of them. If you got them, just unmute yourself and share it with us.
Iowa, Indiana, Illinois, Idaho.
Very good. Good job, Andrew. All right, next one. I'm going to give you guys one more. Write down a word that begins with the letter A. Okay, so that's one separate word, and one word that begins with the letter B that both have at least 5 syllables. One that begins with the letter A, one that begins with the letter B, that both have at least 5 syllables. All right, anybody got an A or a B? If you have either one, you can share it with us. A and a B.
Amoxicillin.
Amoxicillin. Good. Anybody else got one with A or B, 5 syllables? B, bureaucratically, would be one. So with those games, guys, I like to warm the brain up sometimes when I give presentations, because first, it's fun. And that is not a matter of intelligence, either of those two things, naming the states that begin with the letter I or 5-syllable A words or B words. You can go through the whole alphabet. It's a different type of recall memory. Okay, so it's like a muscle. This is stuff that I guarantee you all know all the states that begin with the letter I. Nobody did not know any of those 4 states. But we have to work that part of our brain if we want to keep it strong, especially as we age. It's a great way to wake up your brain, a great thing that you can play with family, whatever. But there's all types of little games like that I like to play. Sometimes in my morning routine, sometimes presentations, sometimes if I got to get my brain going, or I feel like it's starting to lose its edge, okay, as far as memory goes. So tonight, going over basically your vision quest. Going to go over some goal setting stuff, things that I've learned from great coaches that I've had throughout my life. And, just self-study. So thinking small versus massive action, that's one thing we're going to cover. We're going to talk about Stephen King, the purpose of a goal. And that is a very simple thing, the purpose of a goal. but it'll always guide you whether you're on track or not. The goal of a goal, same thing, very simple. But if you remember this, you'll almost always be able to hit your targets and some other miscellaneous stuff. Take about 25, 30 minutes. Make sure if you have a pen and paper, because I'm going to want you to write some goals down as we go through this, and keep track of your questions as we go as well. I'll answer all your questions at the end. The purpose of any goal is to increase your level of happiness. I'm going to repeat that because it's so simple. A lot of people, it goes right over their head. The purpose of any goal is to increase your level of happiness and joy. If it is not taking you down that path, let's say you started a weight loss, right? A weight loss goal, and you are miserable while you're doing it. The goal is not the right fit, or you're going about it the wrong way, because it's not like you're going to get there and all of a sudden be happy. That's not the way it works. The purpose of any goal, and really the main part of the goal, it's not the destination, right? It's the process, right? The growth that comes through the process. That's where the joy comes from. But the purpose of any goal is to increase your level of happiness. Always remember that. It's always going to guide you on the right track. Part of that's being able to do what you want to do when you want to do it. Freedom is a main ingredient for everybody's definition of happiness. Other things vary, but freedom is one of the main things. Okay. And when you're setting a goal, it gives you a big dopamine hit, whether that's a very micro goal, like something on your daily to-do list, or a 3-month goal or year-long goal, which you'd have to break up. But dopamine, right? That's what's going to keep you driving towards it, right? And we got to figure out, how do we get that constant drip of dopamine so we stay engaged and we feel good, right? It can't be a 2-year goal and you're only going to know if you got there in 2 years. You got to have benchmarks set up along the way. The goal of a goal. Another one that's very simple, and these are things that have stuck with me throughout the years. The goal of the goal, okay? The goal is to keep the goal the goal. Remember that. Jot that down. The goal is to keep the goal the goal. If you don't do that, because so many people set goals and then they're a certain amount of time into the achievement process, and then something else pops up, some other shiny object, something else that has nothing to do with their goal, and they get sidetracked and start doing that. The goal is to keep the goal the goal, right? You put that right in front, and the people that succeed at this, the people that succeed at achieving their goals and goal attainment, they are able to withstand the boredom that comes with achieving a goal. Because when you're going after a goal, many times your day is going to almost be like a Groundhog Day. Wake up and repeat, wake up and repeat, wake up and repeat. A lot of people just can't get their mind around that. They get bored and then they're off. So the goal is to keep the goal the goal. So here's some different categories. I'm going to have you jot down a couple ideas here in a second. Different categories you can set goals for, and there's more than this, but this is what kind of guides me. Fitness, so fitness goals, work-related goals, wealth goals, family goals, faith goals, or personal goals. Okay, so that's 6 different categories right now. I'm going to give you about 2 minutes. I'm not going to give you all night to do this, so you can work on this again later. 2 minutes. I want you to jot down whatever comes to mind for any of these categories. If you can get a couple for each, that's great. We'll work on narrowing that down later, but go ahead and begin. Write down a couple goals for the next 90 days. Okay. 2 minutes. 20 more seconds. All right. You can keep jotting if you want. I'm going to continue with the presentation. You don't have to share those right now or at all. The thing about goals, though, guys, is, well, I'm going to go over it right here, okay? Does it excite you and make you a little bit nervous? Okay, you have to be excited. The excitement and the enthusiasm is what's going to be able to help you sustain over the long haul with your goal setting. Okay, because let's say it's something that you want to become world class in. So when I first started training people, my goal was to be one of the best strength coaches in the world. Okay, that was my goal at the time. And I learned early on from reading and going to different seminars, you have something called the 10,000 hour rule, 10,000 hours. Okay, and this has been proven time and time again. To become world class at anything in your life takes 10,000 hours of focused attention or practice or work. 10,000 hours. That's a long time. Right? That is a long time of focused attention on that specific thing. Most people, even if they make it to 500 hours, they get bored and say, nothing happened. Forget about it. There's a great book called Outliers that I did the audio version years ago before they even had Audible. So I have it on CD. And he talks about things like the Beatles. The Beatles were playing 5-6 nights a week for 4 hours a night for years in Europe before anybody even heard of them. And all of a sudden they're an overnight success. So it's got to excite you. It's got to make you a little nervous. If I say I'm going to go bench 200 pounds tomorrow, that's not going to make me a little bit nervous. Okay, that's something I've already attained. Should have you playing at your edge. So you got to be on your edge. You got to be on your A game to be able to achieve this. Right? So it should push you. It should stretch you as a human being, as a man. What are you actually capable of in your life? More than likely, your goal is going to be strange, scary, or confusing to other people. Right? That's a clue that I use when I set my goals. Devin's kind of used to it now, but if I tell one of my buddies and somebody in one of my mastermind groups, and if I get that type of reaction, I'm on to something. For example, this is a great example. Just popped in my head. So about 5-6 years ago, so I started my fasting right in 2014. So one of the mastermind groups I'm in, it came up at a meeting and I said, I really want to start really focusing on this fasting. Like there's something to this and I'm passionate about it and it can change people's lives. And I've tried everything else there is. I understand the science with this. And the leader, the guy that ran the group and some other guys, that will never work with mainstream people. People don't want to talk about fasting. They don't want to hear about fasting, blah, blah, blah. But I knew that, there's something to it. If they're all telling me this is not the way to go, like this is a little weird, even fitness guys, and I stuck with it. And I followed through. Actually, with the Panda Challenge and all that, I have my notebook over there that I took on vacation with me. 2019, December of 2019, before COVID, I was sick as a dog. I had the worst flu you could imagine. I only know because Devin made me go to make sure it wasn't pneumonia because I had that really bad in the past. And they did a swab and I had flu B. And I was laid up for like 2-3 days in our bedroom. And I said, keep the TV on in the background. Let me jot down my goals for the year. And one of them was the Panda Challenge, which I now run. I've run 6 of them, right? So that this, it started as an idea. People told me it was weird and strange. Jotted it down, the details of it. What's it going to look like? Blah, blah. And it's a reality now. There's a book and everything, okay? And expect to be wrong. Goal setting is an art. Sometimes you set goals, especially if you're new at it, and you're actually going to set a goal. Like some people just have ideas, but they don't actually take the time. Okay, here's my goal. Here's how I'm going to do it. Let me break it down. Sometimes it's too easy. You'll find, be like, man, that didn't excite me. Sometimes you'll start and you'll be like, I don't really care about this goal. It makes no sense. I'm not passionate about it. I've done that plenty of times. So expect to be wrong. So let's say we're starting, April just started. So April, May, June. So we're going to count that as a quarter, not a business quarter, just a quarter of the year. After tonight's presentation, pick three. Try to pick three things, 1 to 3, let's say, for this next 90 days that you're going to focus on and you're going to achieve. Okay, 90 days. That's all I'm asking of you. 90 days. Pick up to 3 for the quarter. Do not goal hop. I talked about this. It gets very easy after that initial enthusiasm wears off, right? Let me go over here. Even if you set the goal and you realize 3 weeks in that it's not a good goal, that's why I like to pick 3. But if you can, stick it out. Keep working on it. Because every time you break a promise to yourself, you reduce the level of trust you have in yourself. Right? If you don't trust yourself, and most people don't talk about that relationship with themselves, but if you don't trust yourself, you're never going to believe in yourself. You're always going to have that doubt in the back of your mind, right? You're always going to have that doubt that, man, I said I was going to do, I didn't do this. I didn't do this. I didn't do this, right? And that's the acronym, right? To do what you said you would do, right? That's something that I think everybody should live by. But if you do what you said you would do, at least you know whether you're right or wrong. And then it's, if you do that, you're gonna do whatever you want in your life. Do what you said you would do. So you have the achievement mindset, and I might have talked about this in the first presentation. But you have I will. Okay, I will is basically the champion's mindset. Versus I have to, I need to. Right? These are loser mentalities. If you're doing something because you have to, right, because your doctor told you had to do it, or your wife, it's not going to stick. I've seen this over and over. I need to, right? What that's a neediness, right? That's like the infantile ego. I need to do that. No, you don't need to do anything. When you go forward with I will, right, and you repeat that over and over, I will, blah, blah, blah. I will, blah, blah, blah. That's the champion's mindset. That's the champion's mindset. And you got to revisit it every single day. If you guys look at like someone like Larry Bird, okay, if you looked at just the way he looked in his athletic abilities, running, jumping, strength, he should not have been that great of a player. Okay, the guy couldn't even jump over a phone book. He had the height, but that was all he had. But Larry Bird would show up before games and he would shoot for 6 hours before games. 6 straight hours he would shoot. He'd have somebody, a ball boy, and he would shoot. And he did this throughout his whole career. So you think about that. It wasn't luck, but he had the I will mindset. I'm just going to will myself literally to being one of the best shooters ever. So there's a world famous athlete that and there's many others, right? I mean, you have Jordan, you have Kobe, you have so many people. Got to build the big momentum, right? So goal setting, like anything, when you first start out, you're not going to see much. That first week, the first 2 weeks, first day, first 2 days, you're not going to see too much. You got to build momentum. Once momentum gets going, right, it's going to be unstoppable. It's going to be unstoppable. Think about a train or a rocket ship. Like a rocket ship uses over 90% of its fuel just on takeoff. The human body, the human brain, the spirit is the same way. Just getting started is the hardest thing because you're dead stop. And now you got to get going. So once we get that momentum going, that's where things will really start to happen. And then you kind of start connecting and linking different goals, and you just keep going, right? You just keep going, keep going, keep going. So how do you build that momentum? No, positive attention, right? We don't want to have negativity surrounding our goal. I think I have in this presentation where I talk about pre-success failure, but you don't want to have that, oh man, I didn't achieve it yet, so I'm a failure. I'm not there yet. I'm not good enough yet. You don't want to have that. You want to have this positive tension, right? So, and you could have micro benchmarks along the goal. You could have rewards along the goal, right? Positive tension, like to put it as an analogy, would be like a meal. Let's say you were fasting all day and there's a meal you're really looking forward to having later that night. Like that anticipation towards it, right? It's not that far away. It's positive. Okay, I gotta complete my day. I gotta finish my work, and I gotta do all this stuff before I get to eat that meal, though. Right. So positive tension, not too far out. Positive tension is just like enough to keep pulling you along. And I'm gonna reiterate the goal is to keep the goal. The goal you see I have there. The hardest thing in the world to do is to maintain focus. That is the hardest thing in the world to do, is to remain focused. Okay, systems. This is important. This is something I had to learn the hard way when it comes to goal setting. Most people think of a goal as a one-time event, right? When I first started competing in bodybuilding, to me, I didn't have anybody coach me on my psyche and my mindset and all this stuff at that time. So to me, it was like, I got to compete on May, whatever it was, May 12th. Let's say May 12th or 13th. That's my goal, to compete that day, right? Now, a couple things happened. When that was the goal, as soon as I was done with that day, I went into depression for about 3-4 months, bad, because I placed everything on this pinnacle. I didn't think about the after. I didn't think about the process leading up to it. It was that day, and it came and went. It was gone. I looked at it as an event, and it took me numerous years of competing to realize it's not about the competition day. That's fun. It's about the process. You know, once I did that, I learned so much more from the whole experience of bodybuilding. And I wasn't expecting. Yeah, I wanted to win, but it wasn't my expectation. Do the best you can do. Show up that day, have fun, and continue your life right afterwards. So the pre-success failure is when you view that, right? Like, so when I was getting ready for that first show, those first couple shows, the contest is here the whole time. Man, you don't look good enough. You're not lean enough. Oh, blah, you're a failure. This guy's going to beat you. Right. So the whole time you don't really necessarily feel good about yourself. And then it hits. And now what? You have this big gap. You put so much energy and attention to focus on this one thing, right? If you're viewing it as an event. And if that event doesn't go the way as planned, particularly, you're going to be even more in the funk. Right? Happiness is the process, guys. Happiness is not achieving your goal. That's very important. Happiness is not the achievement of the goal. It's the process. Right? It is really, and different religious figures have said that throughout the years, but happiness is the path. Right? Once you realize that, each day is going to be a joy when you're trying to get after your goals. Stephen King. I love horror movies, love horror books, anything horror. I love Halloween. It's my favorite holiday. So Stephen King wrote his first novel when he was still working in the public education system up in the Northeast in New England. It's either Maine or Massachusetts. Actually, Casey, who's doing the Ripped Ads with you guys, he hasn't been on any of the calls yet, but Coach Casey, me and him grew up together. His dad went to high school with Stephen King in Maine. And Casey's dad, his nickname is the Bullet. They used to call him the Bullet. He's actually in Stephen King's first book. So that's pretty cool. They went to high school together, and he actually talks about the Bullet early on. Big time high school basketball player. That's pretty cool. Now, Stephen King wrote his first novel, Carrie, while he was working full time as a teacher. He didn't have a car when he started this book. He would write it on the way on the bus. He would write it on the way to work, on the way home, on his lunch breaks. He would write. Never thought nothing would amount of it, but he was very driven about writing this book. The book went on later to become a bestseller. Now, Stephen King, no matter what, and I've listened to different audio interviews with him and video interviews with him, he writes 2,500 words a day, no matter what. No matter what. Doesn't matter if it's his birthday, Christmas, whatever it is. He doesn't miss. And some people say, whoa, he could do that because he's Stephen King. I look at it the other way. He did that and he became Stephen King. He committed to that process, 2,500 words a day, no matter what, right? And he even says in some of his things, and you'll find this, I guarantee you, if you look at your life for this to be true, the hard part isn't necessarily writing, right? Like, I love to write. That's not necessarily the hard part if that's something you're passionate about. It's getting to the chair to sit down to write. There's so many distractions, right, that can pull you away from this phone went off, this text, this email, blah, blah, blah. Kids need something. Once you actually sit down to do what you got to do, it should flow, right? But there's another, and I always drop, when books pop in my head, I'll mention them to you because that's how I think you build your library. But The War of Art, not The Art of War, The War of Art is a very simple read by Stephen Pressfield. It is fantastic. The War of Art. And he talks about, and I'll post that when I post the videos from last week and this week, later this week. The resistance. The resistance is always going to show up when you're going after a meaningful goal. The resistance could be any of those things I just mentioned. Could be your accountant calls you out of the blue. You need to take some care with your taxes. Resistance is there to test you. And Devin will call me out on this sometimes. When resistance shows up in my life and I want to just be, forget, I just don't even want to work on this project. I'm done with it. Are you feeling resistance? Yeah. Well, you got to go that way then. She has heard me talk about it so much now she'll call me out on it. Right? So resistance is going to show up when you're going after a meaningful goal. The most confident person in any room, okay, is the one that has the most certainty. Okay, so confidence / attractive. I'm not talking about physical looks or anything like that. It's the person that has the most certainty about what they're doing in their life. You could go into a room of Fortune 500 CEOs, but if you're the man in that room that knows more than them what your mission in life is, you're going to be the most attractive person in that group. They'll be drawn to you. Doesn't matter if it has nothing to do with business. They're going to, man, and you'll notice it with people in your life that you've been around that are like, they have a mission, right? And they have something they want to achieve, right? But the most confident / attractive person in any room is the one that has the most certainty. So all this goal setting, right, is really, you're going to have different goals and all that, but underlying all of this is everybody, I believe, has a mission in their life. You know, a mission that they're here to achieve. Some of that is going to be on a huge scale. Some of it's not. It doesn't have to be on a huge scale. It might just be the best. It might be to be the best father you can be, which is a huge thing because maybe your kid, your son or daughter is going to be the one that saves the world one day. We don't know that. We don't know that's not true. Right. So you have a mission though. Right? You definitely have a mission. Just give that some thought. So Matt Fury, who I'm back coaching with him now, and Matt coached me for over a year. So interesting about Matt. Matt's one of the most interesting people I've ever met. He's down in Florida. He was a world champion in Kung Fu. He wrestled for Dan Gable at Iowa. Taught me a lot about business and just mindset. So to just kind of frame who Matt is, Tony Robbins' top advisors frequently. So Tony Robbins is like, he was in Shallow Hal, but he's like the go-to motivational guy, right, in the world, Tony Robbins. Tony Robbins' people, his advisors and whatnot, will often call Matt Fury to pick his brain about something Tony wants to present on. So Matt is an interesting guy. One of the things he taught me, and I remember because I did the coaching call, so I'd have a coaching call with him every month, and it was cold as heck. It was like 3 or 4 Januaries ago. So I walked down to the river, and I've got bad circulation, and my hands were freezing. I remember talking to him, and my phone kept dropping, and I kept calling him back, and getting a little mad. My phone's breaking, so I'm trying to find a spot where I can get this, without dropping the signal. But I finally found a spot. I'm freezing, and he said, "Kyle, with the goals you have, think small. Massive action is going to kill your desire to do anything. So when you set this goal, like most people set a New Year's resolution, if you say, man, I'm going to do 10 things tomorrow to get this goal done, that is not going to last." Remember how the brain, when I talked to you guys about the brain science early on, willpower is based up in the prefrontal cortex, the human part of your brain. It's energy dependent. It runs off glucose. It needs to replenish itself with sleep and rest. You can't do 10 things towards your goal every single day, right? So you got to think small. Think small. Then Matt, when he was talking to me, at that point in my life, I'm trying to think if I'd achieved it yet. One of my goals, I'd either achieved it, I had just achieved it maybe the summer before. So Colt was just born. I wanted to bench press 400 pounds and worked on it. That was my main goal at that time. Worked on it. I did it right before Colt was born. So Matt said, you did that. He goes, but think about when you first started lifting. I remember I couldn't even bench press 95 pounds when I first started lifting. That's a 25-pound plate on each side of the bar. I was in high school. I couldn't even bench press that. He said, so let's say you at that point said, I'm going to bench press 400 pounds. It would have been so far out of the realm of possibility that I might have been excited for a day or two, but then my desire would have been crushed, right? My desire, because it would have been like, well, I can't even bench press 100 pounds, right? So how did I do it over that time? Let's add 5 pounds to the bar here and there. Let's work on your triceps. Let's do, right? And over time, that your period of time, you're talking a 20-year period of time, right? That wasn't my goal at the time, but it's like, think small, add 2.5 pounds to the bar, if we're using that as an analogy. And dopamine equals desire. So you always, if it's too much massive action, okay, you're going to drop 100 pounds in the next month, you're not going to get the hit of dopamine. If you say, I'm going to drop 2 pounds a week, and you do that, boom, you get that rush of dopamine. Oh, let me keep going. Let me drop a pound this week. Boom, do it. So how do we keep that constant dopamine drip going? Think of it as an IV into your arms, guys. You want to get that dopamine going constantly. Okay? So think small, I just talked about. We did theater of the mind. What was that? Maybe 2 or 3 presentations ago. I'll probably do this again with you guys next week. But theater of the mind is basically visualization. That's what I call it. That's what Matt taught me, Matt Fury. But running this through your head, seeing yourself succeeding, right? Now, most people only, if they do visualization at all, only picture the end goal, right? They're picturing, okay, I'm standing on stage with the trophy. What if you started visualizing just the successful habits you needed day in and day out? Like the habits you needed to work on, or the things you needed to work on tomorrow to achieve your goal in a year. Okay, can I write 1 article tomorrow? Let me picture myself doing that, right? And affirmations, those are your I am statements. Remember, for those of you that were on, I talked on last week, the 3 steps to creation, the 3 elements to creation. Okay. Thinking. So we have thought, we have word, and we have action. So thinking and the word really is where affirmations come in. Right. I think I shared my affirmations with you guys, and I'll share it again with you if you want. because again, this took me a long time to learn. Instead of writing, okay, I'm a multimillionaire, I am best-selling author, whatever it is, I changed it this year to I am committed to taking the actions I need to take to achieve my goals. I am committed to taking the actions I need to take to achieve my goals. So there's no specific outcome with that. It's committing to taking the actions. So affirmations and theater of the mind. Remember, when you visualize something, your brain cannot tell the difference whether you physically did it or you just pictured it in your head. So that's important to know. The superconscious mind, not the subconscious, superconscious, kind of the part of your brain that will pull ideas right out of the ether, out of the universe. It will just come up with stuff. That part of your brain, when you're in what's called like the flow state, either needs to be hyper focused or relaxed. Okay. So a lot of times, if you look at like Thomas Edison or even Einstein, but Edison used to take these cat naps where he would hold his keys, okay, his keys for his house or whatever else he had keys for in his hand. And he would lay on the couch and he would keep a plate right under his hand, a glass plate. So as soon as he started drifting off enough and his hand relaxed, he would drop the keys, that noise would wake him up. So you're talking like 15 minutes. And that would be enough where he would wake up and jot down the idea that came to him for a problem that he had been working on. And he was famous for doing this, right? For taking these cat naps and coming. And Einstein a lot of times would keep a book next to his bed. He would wake up, and I think this is when he was working on the theory of relativity. The answer finally came to him in a dream, right? So your brain is so far incredibly powerful. There's so much that we don't know about it. But Einstein will wake up and write down his ideas. You look at somebody like Tesla, right? So Tesla, if you look at the hyper focus, now that guy was, so Nikola Tesla, I'm not talking about Elon Musk, I'm talking about Nikola Tesla, the guy that the car is named after. His IQ was reported to be 300. Okay, if I'm not mistaken, I think Einstein was only like 200. I say only, but Einstein was a genius. So Tesla was on another realm of intelligence, 300. But Tesla, you talk about being hyper focused. This guy would stay up for 3 days straight and work. 3 days straight. Sleep for 3 hours, do it again. Wake up, work for 3 days straight. I don't know where that came from, but that's, I mean, the guy, if you read about Tesla, you'll see how much of a genius he was and how actually Edison got a lot of the credit for Tesla stuff. But either way, relaxed or figure out how to put yourself in a hyper focused state. One of the tricks I like to do for that, guys, is I have certain music tracks I listen to put me in a state when I want to write. Right? It's like Pavlov's conditioning. So I could put on, and this can sound silly, but I'll put on the Halloween theme song because that got wired into my brain with creativity. And when I write, I could just put that, I'll put it on repeat and I'll set my timer and then I just go. But it puts me into this hyper-focused state when I'm writing. To the point, guys, where a lot of times, like my daily emails that you guys probably get, or you see a lot of stuff, I don't even remember what I wrote a lot of the times. People would tell me, oh, that was a good email you wrote. I don't even remember what it was about because I'll write it all at one shot, right? And it just kind of comes out and I'm done. I don't reread it or anything. Send it to my virtual assistant and it's off. But that came from years of, okay, how do you get focused? Sit down at the computer, set your timer, go. Dude, this stuff works, guys. Okay, quadrant 2, I want to talk to you about. If Stephen Covey had a book, Stephen Covey passed probably about 10 years ago. It was like the 7 skills of highly efficient or effective people. The main thing of that book, you don't have to read, the book was great, but you don't have to read it, is he has these quadrants. He has a quadrant, okay? And on the one side of the quadrant, okay, so he's got 4 boxes, important and let's say not important. So that's 2 categories. And across the top, urgent and not urgent. right? So something can be urgent and important. Something can be not important, but urgent, right? Like your phone, your text message body, you got to know who it was. Well, quadrant 2 is the stuff that is important, but not urgent. It's important, but it's not urgent. It's the easiest stuff to put off because it's not urgent. Quadrant 2 really consists of um, relationships, planning, preparation, creative work, right? So if you just Google Stephen Covey's Quadrant 2 or quadrants, you'll see what I'm talking about, but it's important, but it's not urgent. People probably spend about 5 to 10% of their time in that quadrant, where you should be spending about 90% of your time in that quadrant. It's can become very clear when you look at that quadrant and you look at the other quadrants, activities that can make up those quadrants, where you're spending your time and why you should not be spending your time in certain quadrants. Okay. So with this, guys, 20% of your time should be spent planning. Okay, planning / thinking. If you don't do this, you're not going to achieve your goals. And again, I've learned this the hard way, where you always think, or the natural tendency is to think output. You got to be outputting stuff. You got to be having something to show for your effort. What I like to do on Fridays, I call Freedom Fridays. A big chunk of my day on Friday is planning for the next week and thinking. I take pen to paper and I think. I write down a few questions and I think. Okay, how can you look at it this way? How can you solve this? How can you do this? Right? And if you take the time to do that, you're going to continue that momentum. It doesn't seem like it's worthy of your time, but it's probably, those are quadrant 2 activities. Thinking and planning are 2 of the most important things you can carve into your schedule. Benchmarks for your goals. If we set those 90-day goals, jot down where should you be by 60 days and where should you be by 30 days to know that you're on track. Don't just wait to day 90 and be like, let me see if I got there today. Right? Again, using bodybuilding as the analogy, because that was a big part of my life. I knew that, okay, if I took 16 to 20 weeks to get ready for a contest, by 8 weeks, I had to be at a certain weight and a certain body fat. And if I wasn't, that was trouble, because then I was going to have to suffer the final 8 weeks, or I wouldn't be ready. So you have benchmarks. Right? Benchmarks you got to constantly measure. So this goes into the next thing. I'm almost done here, guys. How do you gamify it? I might have told you guys a story about Seinfeld, maybe not, but I'll repeat it anyhow because you can never hear this stuff too much. So Seinfeld, when he finally made it onto the scene and started becoming a lot of notoriety, he had the sitcom, he had sellout crowds. He was being interviewed. They said, well, how did you all of a sudden make it into this, you were like nobody and all of a sudden you're this big comedian. And he said he took a wall calendar. So you have those wall calendars that have all 12 months, big ones. He had a 2-year wall calendar. And he said, I made a commitment that every day, okay, I was going to write, it was either 2 or 3 hours worth of material, like jokes, ideas, right? He's taking time to think. He went and he says, okay, so before I go, how long he went? Every day that he did that on the calendar, he'd give himself a big red X. Now he starts getting a month, 2 months in. He hasn't missed a day. And you start seeing this chain of red X's. He went 2 straight years without missing a day. Then all of a sudden, magically, he had his breakthrough. It wasn't magic, guys. He did what he said he was going to do. And talking about gamifying it, how do you make this measurement process and all that? How do you make it fun? How do you make it a game? I think I told you guys I use that same system with my morning routine. I have calendars on the fridge. If I did my morning routine, X, what day in a row was that? It's a little game. Because at the end of the day, you don't want to be like, man, I missed today and I could have done it, right? Because even before you go to bed, you could make up stuff. You could do something to get in that X. So how do you gamify something? How do you make it so it's more enjoyable? Life is life's a game, right? So I always say that life's a game. You you're not going to know if you won, right? So it's not that type of game. But in a game, the only reason you're going to play a game is if you're having fun with it and you're keeping score somehow. You're measuring, right? So those two things. Are you keeping score and are you measuring, right? And like you guys do your weekly check-in with ripped ads on the scale. That's a form of measurement, right? It's going to feed the dopamine. Successful people have these two things in common. They all set goals and they all have a coach of some sort. I can guarantee you that. Anybody that I've ever hired to be my coach, they have their own coaches, even the top level guys. And many times it's multiple coaches. They set goals and they have a coach. Get clarity around your goals. Where is your attention? That is a great thing to remember, to keep the goals, to keep the goal. Always ask, where's my attention right now? Where's my attention been? If you're off track, it's because your attention's off track. It's simple. Where are you putting your attention? And it's an infinite game, right? The game goes on forever. You know, your life game. And now what happens when you die? That's a whole different topic. But it's an infinite game, right? Even if you don't achieve your goal in the time you thought, it's okay. Life's going to continue. Reset. Continue with it. And expect to fail, guys. That's a good thing when you fail. You only lost if you don't know why you lost. If you fail, that's the greatest teacher, right? When you fail, that is the greatest teacher. So plan out some goals that get you excited. All right. So what questions do we have on? Hold on. Let me see if I can stop I think I stopped the share. What questions do we have, guys? Any questions? I gave you guys a lot of stuff with goal setting tonight. I'll post this in the last lesson by Thursday. But use what you can from that, right? Some of the stuff you might not agree with, some of the stuff you might have to find out for yourself. But I'll tell you that the goal setting stuff, just like the fasting and that is stuff that I've paid. I've had to learn the hard way, and I've invested a lot of money to different coaches to learn this stuff, right? Some of it seems very simple, and it is. But when you start learning from people that have a proven track record, right? Like you got to be aware of coaches that haven't achieved what they're trying to help you achieve. That doesn't make any sense, but there's a lot of those people out there, right? So, what do you got, Josh?
What's going on, guys? So just real quick, getting to, halfway through this and everything, and doing the panda before and everything. And I talked to you about it before, like self-sabotage,
Yep.
and sort of get to a point where I do amazing for the first few weeks, and then trying to keep that energy level up throughout the whole 6 weeks. Or you have some, I know it's not a special pill, magic pill or anything, but what are some things that you can do, me and everybody else, sort of to keep that energy up all the way through and sort of refocus every, when you start getting down or you miss a day, or, you start losing that sort of spark that you had in the beginning?
Good question. So if we're talking about goals, right, we got to really be clear on why we want to achieve that goal. And the main thing, though, Josh, with that is that morning routine for me. That is the main thing, because every morning I'm writing down my affirmations. I'm doing my visualization. I'm writing down my goals. Right. So it really, like one of those last slides that I had is, where is your attention? I guarantee for anybody in this group that when we start getting off track, right? And remember, stress is what's always going to be that knocks you off track. But when the stress comes, what happens? That's where your attention goes.
Right.
Right. So each day you got to reset your attention. Where is my attention? And that could just be writing down your goals one time each, writing that affirmation down, and then visualizing. Right, and it's boring work. There's many days that I do not want to do that. And I remember this is a couple of years ago. As I think I might have mentioned the F5 system. I've talked about it in one of the pandas with you before, but came up between me and Devin, and she said, "Well, you like doing that stuff in the morning." And I said, "I don't like doing that, but you gotta, It's that discipline, right? I would rather sleep in, not set an alarm clock, wake up and eat donuts, right? Like if you want to talk about like the infantile ego." So, but it's the commitment to, it's a commitment every day, Josh. Right.
Yeah, I think for me, the starting the journal and writing everything down in the morning is the biggest thing I'll take away from this so far. And looking back at the 20 something days and see that every single morning, on a Saturday, even on a Sunday, even waking up and writing those things down, and then when I see the page that I missed, I'm like, shit, and like that sort of kicked me back on track too, or at least got my mind right to say, like, I don't want to miss another day, and I like having that consistency all the way through. And yeah, it's forming or building that discipline. I think for me,
it's huge.
Starting to get through. Yeah, but getting and writing down, day 22. Like I said, halfway through this, you realize, shit, like we've been doing it for a while. We still have that track, and I need to get that energy back for the second half, for the second half of the game. You know what I mean? And they always say the fourth quarter is the most important, right? That's where you win it all. So I think that's what I'm sort of leaning on now these days.
Yeah, lean on that and look at using that analogy, like Nick Saban, right? His whole thing with his program is next play.
Yeah.
It's not let's go win another championship. It's next play. What's the next play? What's the next play that's right in front of you? Right. And he instills that into his players and his staff. Next play. What's the next play? And like Bill Belichick, what everybody focus on, what's your job? Everybody in the organization, what is your role today? Right now let's go. Not let's necessarily win a Super Bowl, but what's your role today?
Yeah.
But you got to, and guys, some of the stuff that helps me with this too is when you need a kick in the pants, right? First, you got to ask for it and then talk to yourself. That inner dialogue, talk to yourself in the third person, right? Again, go back to competing. When I would be training and I would be dead tired, I would talk to myself in the third person all the time. Come on, you got to get this last rep. You got to get this last set, Kyle. Come on. This guy, Dennis, he's training harder than you right now, Kyle. What are you going to do to beat him? Right. And you start learning little mental games like that. Like you kind of remove yourself from yourself and talk to yourself. Right. Be the observer. Be the coach. And it should be painful when you get to that day 22 and then boom, you got to reset and start at zero,
Yeah.
It should hurt a little bit. And that's a good thing. Right. And always blend that, guys, with the compassion, right? You need to have compassion for yourself. And it took me a long time to learn that as well. But you got to, it's progress, not perfection, right? Progress, not perfection. Was I better today than I was yesterday? Did I give my best? Maybe I didn't follow through on everything. Okay. That's what you're looking for. You ain't going to be perfect, right? But you get up, you do it again. And Josh, if you have, like, let's say the next 3 months, if you're running at like 90%, 95% success, I mean, that's better than the best hitter in the Hall of Fame baseball, right? 406 is the highest average ever, right?
I'll take that, definitely.
So you just remember that and just start over, start stringing the days together again. Start at day 1, try to beat day 22 next time.
Yeah.
Makes sense?
It's good. I mean, I try to, also sometimes think every day is a day 1, right? Because you, for me, in my mindset, every day, like that day 1, you try so hard that day. You're so on point with what you're doing because you're starting and you have these new goals. So in a way, like I try and think like, all right, well, today is the day, right? Not number 1, not number 22, but it's just today. So if you win today, then all that stuff will sort of just take care of itself. So
It will. It will. The ultimate achievement, the ultimate outcome. Again, this you learn. You know, as you go through life, you learn this stuff sometimes the hard way. If we place too much importance on anything, right? Too much importance on our goal, achieving that goal, you're not going to achieve it,
yeah,
right? The universe is going to balance you out, right? So the importance, like you said, is on the day in, day out. And it's the qualities that you're trying to live to, the characteristics of the man that you want to be, right? But achieving this goal that's 3 months or a year in the future, when you break it down, it's not that important, right? And when you do that, you can have a more relaxed mind as you go towards it, right? More relaxed. If you're tensing over all this, right, like you're very tense over achieving, you're not going to achieve it, right? We got to have a relaxed mind or a hyper focus. But you can't have a hyper focused mind if you're stressed out of your mind about achieving something.
definitely.
What else? Okay. Anybody else got any goal setting questions or any questions at all about the stuff we've been going over? Cool. I'm going to resume the book club next week because it looks like most of the guys are not on that we're doing the book club. If you want to do it, it's a really good book. I'll be posting the assignment for next week up here. What we did last week is we stayed on after the call and went over this for about 20 minutes. Iron John, a lot of stuff is clicking with me in there, but I'll resume that next week. Next week, we'll be back to our regular Mondays. Okay, thanks for the switch up today. We were driving back all day yesterday and today. And yeah, keep up the good work, guys. You let me know whatever you need. All right. Have a good night, boys.
Thanks, man. Good night, guys.
Ready, guys.